boy seeks to punish the doctor who killed his father. Stephen Murphy is a cardiothoracic surgeon. Following an open-heart surgery, Stephen is walking out of the operating room while discussing with his friend Matthew, the anesthesiologist, about watches. Stephen sits at a diner where a boy named Martin comes and eats with him. Later on, Stephen gives Martin a fine and expensive watch as a gift. The relationship between these two is yet to be revealed. That night, Stephen has dinner with his family, his wife Anna and their children, Bob and Kim. After dinner, Anna lies in bed and stays completely still as if unconscious, whereas Stephen starts kissing her. The next day, Martin visits Stephen at the hospital, expressing his gratitude for the present the other day, and Stephen lies about him to Matthew. Stephen gives a speech at a medical convention and leaves early with Anna to return home. Stephen comes to hang out with Martin, enjoying a walk together, and at some point he asks the boy to come to his house and meet his family. Martin agrees and comes bearing gifts for everyone. Martin spends some time with Kim and Bob. He lights a cigarette and Kim is almost enthralled by him. Martin sits with the rest of the family again and Stephen proposes to sleep over if he wants. Martin politely declines, saying that he needs to be with his mother. Later that night, Stephen tells Anna that Martin's father has died in a car accident and that he operated on him. He receives a call shortly afterwards from Stephen, who says that he has appreciated the visit and wants to return the favour. Stephen then goes to Martin's house and meets his mother. He sits to watch a movie, and when Martin leaves to go to sleep, his mother hits on Stephen, praising and licking his fingers. Stephen, however, gets uncomfortable and leaves right away. The next day, Martin visits Stephen at his office and complains that his heart is in pain. Stephen has the boy do an exercise stress test, and when it's over, Martin asks Stephen to show him his body hair. Stephen opens his shirt and shows Martin his hairy armpit. Weird enough, Martin asks Stephen to come over for dinner and mentions that his mother is very interested in him. Stephen refuses, saying that he is happy with his wife and children. He avoids Martin after this meeting, even though the boy keeps sending him many text messages. Stephen and Anna visit Matthew and his wife to have a barbecue together. Matthew says something about seeing Martin at the hospital, but Stephen avoids answering. Later that night, Stephen learns from his daughter that Martin has brought her home on his motorbike. Stephen calls Martin, but his call goes unanswered. In the morning, Stephen goes to get Bob ready for school, but his son says that he can't get up as his legs are numb. Stephen and Anna take Bob to the hospital, where the boy is examined by a neurologist. It turns out that the boy is fine, and Anna takes him to school. But once they go down the escalator, Bob collapses and he is admitted for further examination. The doctor briefs Stephen and Anna about Bob's condition. Everything seems fine, but to be certain, it is decided that Bob will spend the night at the hospital. Meanwhile, Kim is riding across town with Martin. When Anna asks her where she is, Kim lies. The next day, Stephen and Anna find Martin in Bob's hospital room. Martin shows that he cares for Stephen's family and asks him to meet up with him in the cafeteria to discuss a serious matter. Martin says that since Stephen has killed his father, he now has to kill one member of Stephen's family for the simple balance of things. Martin even goes into gruesome detail and asks Stephen to choose which one will die. He only has a few days, or else everyone in his family, excluding him, will die. Stephen has security send Martin away, and then he tries to force-feed Bob, who has lost his appetite. Kim pretties herself up for Martin, attempting to make him look at her sexually. She confesses her love for him, but Martin is not inclined to complicate things now, as he is clearly hell-bent on avenging his father's death. In the meantime, Bob's condition deteriorates. His paralysis, in accordance with Martin's threat, makes Stephen paranoid. He tries to make Bob confess that this whole thing is a game played from his part, and ends up threatening to shave his head and make him eat his hair if he doesn't stop this foolishness. Unfortunately, however, Bob is really sick, and he is telling the truth. Things get worse when Kim faints during a vocal rehearsal, and she is quickly admitted into hospital. She shares the same hospital room with her brother. Kim has lost her appetite and experiences lower limb paralysis as well. Anna asks Stephen about this affair and wants to know if he was drunk the day he operated on Martin's father. Stephen admits to having 2 drinks prior to the surgery and reveals that he was seeing Martin regularly over the past 6 months, and that he was aware that the boy had psychological issues. Stephen feels that he is wrongly accused for the death of Martin's father. He deems that Martin is dangerous and that they should probably go to the police. The next day, Martin calls Kim and somehow makes her stand up and walk to the window. Kim looks out for Martin, and Bob gets jealous as he wants to stand up like Kim. He falls down, and Anna asks Kim with whom she was talking, and finds out that it was Martin. Anna is upset and says to Kim that she doesn't want her to talk with him again. Kim responds rudely to her mother, and Anna forcefully takes her daughter's phone. As she is walking out of the room, Kim tells her that she will soon be paralyzed and that this thing is not so tragic. Correctly deducting that Martin is somehow responsible for the strange illness that is affecting their children, Anna talks with Stephen as to what they can do. Stephen seems quite optimistic, but Anna doesn't rely on this and goes to Martin to ask him why he is punishing her family. At first, Martin says that Stephen is flirting with his mother, and Anna wants to know the reason behind this act of revenge. Martin replies that this is the closest thing to justice he can have. Bob and Kim are discharged from the hospital simply because the doctors can't do anything more for them now. Stephen hints at the hospital's usefulness, and Anna asks Matthew about the operation in which Martin's father died. Matthew agrees to tell her a few things in exchange for an act of onanism in his car. A satisfied Matthew puts the blame on Stephen for Martin's death, and later that night, Anna argues with her husband about this whole mess, something which makes Stephen lash out at the cutlery, shouting about witchcraft. As the once happy family is now slowly being torn apart, Stephen wakes up Anna and takes her to the basement where he is holding a beat up and tied Martin. Stephen asks Anna to fetch them some lemonade and calls Martin a murderer. He punches his captive, who responds by biting him on his arm. To make his point of justice and balance, Martin bites off a piece of his own arm. Stephen feels he is being taunted by the ruthless boy. All the while, his kids are on the brink of death. He prepares to fire his rifle at Martin, but the boy says to him how he is going to explain 4 deaths, his including Anna, Kim, and Bob. As Kim is on the same level with Martin, love has made her completely irrational. She says to Bob that their father has a difficult decision to make, and asks for Bob's MP3 player once he is dead. Bob crawls out of bed and finds a pair of scissors with which he cuts his hair. He tells his father that he should have listened to him and be a good boy. Stephen takes him back to bed, and later that day bursts into tears in the yard. The next day, Stephen goes to his children's school to ask about their progress. In a morbid yet desperate kind of way, he wants to decide which one will die and thus save the rest of the family. Back at home, Anna takes Bob and Kim to the basement and tends to Martin's wound. She kisses Martin's feet, and Martin warns her to do something fast because Bob is about to die soon. Anna approaches Stephen in a provocative manner, but Stephen is clearly not in the mood. Anna tells him that he should choose quickly and not worry, as they can have another child. Kim tries to coax her parents to sacrifice her to save her mother and brother. The girl crawls to Martin and asks him to run away with her. She tells him to give her back the ability to walk, and she gets mad at him for not doing anything. Stephen and Anna search for Kim and find her crawling out on the streets. The next day, Anna tells Stephen that she has let Martin go. Stephen is angry at her, and later on, Kim makes Anna slap her. Bob's eyes begin to bleed, and Kim calls her father, saying that her brother is dying. Stephen wipes the blood off Bob's face, and the boy tells him about his best friends at school. Later that night, Stephen gets Anna to come with him to the living room. Soon, Bob, Kim, and Anna are gagged and tied. Stephen is standing among them. He covers their heads and takes up his rifle. He wears a hood that he lowers down over his face and turns his body around a couple of times. He fires once, but misses Kim's head. He goes again, and this time he misses Anna. He loads and spins once more, and this time he shoots Bob in the chest, killing him. After a while, Stephen, Anna, and Kim are having lunch at the diner. Martin walks in and stares at Kim. Stephen takes his family and leaves. Martin watches them go, everyone apathetic externally.